So if you have ever set up a Azure virtual network and you've done it in the past, you may have set it up simply with IP version 4, but now you would like to move to dual stack. This is how you can do it. The setups as seen in this diagram, and so what we're going to be doing is dual assigning everything. Let's get into it. So the first thing we want to do is have a look at our current virtual network and the address space at the moment. Now it's got the default address space, so we want to add an address space for IP version 6. Now we can do that using unique local addressing. So all I need to do is go to a ULA generator web page and copy the network, and then we'll use that to create our address space in Azure. So once that's saved, we can then go into our subnets and choose to update each subnet. But as you can see here, this is grayed out. So what I'll need to do is go back and choose refresh. And then what I want to do is I want to choose to have 1, 2, and 3 as the IP version 6 subnets as well. So that will require doing a little bit of work here. So this one by default has given me the first one. So we're going to label it 1 because we want it to match up. So that's 1. And then the next one is 2, which is the devel subnet. And we'll label that one 2. And then finally, the WAN subnet is .3. So we'll just change that one to .3. So what has now happened is we've got our subnet assigned, and now we need to make sure that our virtual machines and anything running picks up a new address. So I'm going to go into my virtual machines. I'm going to stop them, and then I'm going to wait for them to deallocate. And that will take a few moments. And because the pfSense doesn't have an Azure agent, it might take a little bit longer to stop and deallocate. Right, so they're both deallocated. Now I'm going to go into network interfaces, and from here we can just assign everything to have an IP version 6 address. So we go in and choose IP configurations under settings, click the add button, and we want an IPv6 config, and we choose dynamic, and we don't want a public address for the back end NICs, so we just leave it like that. Dynamic allows it to auto assign, and then we can make it static later if we want to. So we'll just go on through and do next the WAN interface. So again, settings, IP configurations. We choose add, IPv6 config, and this one being our WAN interface. We want it to pick up a new public IP version 6 address there. So we'll just wait for that to deploy, and then finally our test virtual machine. We'll just add a IPv6 config to this one, and add that. Now it looks like there's been an error. So it's saying that it couldn't deploy a change to the WAN interface. So we'll just go back and have a look at that. And again, we'll choose add IPv6 config, and typically it'll have created an IP version 6 address, but it haven't assigned it because it's errored out. So then we just pick up the already created address and assign it to this interface, and it should, I hope, update successfully. Very good. So now we want to go back into our virtual machines and boot them again, and wait for them to come up. Now, looking at our image, we want to see if we can get a ping from our IP version 6. We'll just work our way from the internet in to get everything working. So let's have a look at our public IP version 6 address. And you can see it in a couple of places, but you can see it under this IP config under network settings here, and that will give you the ability to copy it. So I'm going to go and see using ping 6. So let's see if we can ping that address out on the internet. Now it's not replying at the moment, but let's go and log into our pfSense, firewall. And what we can do is go into system logs and into the firewall and sort by so it's saying block all IPv6. So we clearly need to enable IPv6 support. So we'll go into advanced, system advanced, go to, I believe it's networking, and then we want to make sure that allow IPv6 is enabled and save that change. Now it's saying that's been applied successfully, but we're still double check that. Yep, it's stuck. So we'll go back to system logs, go to firewall, and now we're still getting a deny, so we need to add a rule to allow it on our WAN. So it's saying IPv4 allow echo. Can we change this to both? And then see if that will, for IPv6 allow echo requests. And that doesn't seem to be working incredibly well. Let's see if just make them separate. We'll see if we can just put it as a separate rule. Address family. That's it. IPv6. Yep. So has it now, what have we done here that's not right? Let's have a look at our interfaces. Now that's interesting. We've got no actual, we've got link local address, so we need to make a change to our interfaces. So we've got an issue there. There we go. So we need to say, I want to use DHCP to pick up a IPv6 config. Now we just have to wait for this to return. So the firewalls seems to be receiving the packets, but there's nowhere to reply. So because there's no IPv6 address on those interfaces. So once we apply that, let's see if we need to do a restart or reboot of our, so we've got an FD and an FD. So we've got from our subnets there, we can see we should have a 3, yep, a 3 subnet and a 1 subnet. That's good. And now let's see if the ping's working. Yes, it is. So we've now applied our subnet, IPv6 subnet IP addresses, and we have enabled the rules to allow ping so that we can ping it. Now we want to try and get our, we've got, if you have a look at our image, we've got in the back end here, we've got a test box, and we're going to SSH into it using IPv4, and then we're going to see if SSH login is that person. It's on a high port, and then the IP address is, let's go and have a look at that. So that's the IP6 config. Let's go back to the IP4 configuration and copy the address, and hopefully, yep, we've got it. So we can see when we ping outbound that everything works nice. Let's try an IPv6 address, and we haven't got any ping. So what we might need to do here is, let's firstly check if we've got a valid IPv6 address. We do. It's 5. So we might just copy that, and then we'll go into our firewall and our rules, and just let's have a look again in under LAN. And currently it's saying that it's allowing IP version 6 for the LAN network. But let's just have a look at our outbound NAT, and we don't have any IP version 6 NAT. So what we're going to do is we're going to just change to hybrid, and we're going to add a IP version 6 protocols any source is a network, and we're going to say for this /64 network and now that hasn't done what we hoped. Now let's have a look at our, so we've got an outbound NAT rule there, but let's have a look at our system logs and see if what's happening, so that we can sort of tell that okay. So it doesn't seem to be an issue with, it's not saying in our firewall logs that it's been blocked. So what could be the problem? Well, let's think about this. Is that we've got routes in our pfSense firewall. So we've got these user-defined routes, but we've got no user-defined routes for IP version 6. So we need to add some. So we're going to go into pfSense, the portal, go to our virtual network, and subnets. All right. So we've got a user-defined route here. I can just click on it there. And we need to add some user-defined routes. So I'm going to call it UDR IP version 6. Now the destination is every other IP version 6 network other than the one we're on. And the next hop, we need to go and find that IP address. So we go into interfaces, go to our LAN interface, and copy our IP version 6 address. Now, once that's applied, we should have the ability to get traffic from our IP6 enabled VM. But at the moment, it doesn't seem to be going fantastic. It seems to not have okay. So that doesn't seem to be working. And one thing you can do when things aren't working is you can log in to the firewall and then go TCP dump interface. In this case, we're thinking of the LAN interface, and see if we're getting any traffic from, and it seems like the only traffic we're getting is link local stuff, but it does seem as that traffic. Let's try it again. And it definitely looks like we're getting traffic through. Let's just say IP6 only. So we're not interested in, so we can see the pings happening. But it doesn't appear that we're getting pings from, oh no, there it is. So it's heading to, it's actually heading to the interface, but for some reason it's not getting out onto the internet. So what we need to do next is we need to try and figure out if we've got an issue with, yeah, so there we can see we've got still got on the LAN interface, we've got a deny issue. So we want to go into the firewall, into rules, into LAN, and here's an issue. It's basically saying, yes, it's allowing everything from the subnets, but it's actually not. So what I will do with that is I'll go in and create an alias for some networks, and then I will grab you can do it here. That's our network there. Copy. And I want to say 64. And want to add another one. I think there's a couple of networks, but we're just going to say for whichever networks you want to be able to IP, you might call it subnets IPv6, and go in and edit our LAN rules so that the current source is LAN subnets, but does that now allow those? Yep. All right, so now we have outbound IP version 6 pinging out to the internet. So we now know our routing's right. We're getting a reply from the internet. And now what we want to do is just make sure that our inbound IP, so we've got TCP on IP version 4, but we want to do the same thing inbound. We want IP version 6 working as well. So we're going to do that with our WAN interface, address family 6, TCP, the WAN address, web ports. Now this time we want it to, let's go and get into our test VM. This is the actual little web server. So we can then copy the actual IP address of the web server here, and then save that. Now what should then happen is if we grab our WAN address, let's have a look at that again. In our network settings, under the IP6 config on the WAN interface, it's this address here. And our local machine here, let's get a thing up and let's see if we can. And let's say it's IP version 6. And all right, now what am I doing wrong there? I think I need to well, let's try it in our browser. If at first you don't succeed, try again, hey? So we'll go up here, we'll go paste that in, and I think this is the way you do it. There we go. So now we have inbound IP version 6 to our VM, which is serving stuff on port 80. And obviously you can go through and do the same thing for every other port forward, just defining this specific to and from. Well, let's just do that. So let's have a look at what is my IP address. So my IP address here, my IP address here, so we go in and change this to IP version 6, and we say from this IP address, and go in here, copy the to address here, and then hit save. And then we should now, like that's a from and a to on port 2022. So if we can now should be able to go SSH, log in as James, to, oops, we want to log into the remote address of our, there, and I think it just needs to be port 7, and we say yes. So there we have our login from a IP version 6 inbound. So then we can test our functionality with both styles of IP address. So that seems to work, and we can then do the same test. If we go, I don't understand why this instance of curl on my MacBook doesn't actually, so it must be that this doesn't have, this is a different, yeah, must be a different curl that doesn't respond to IPv6 or don't know. So yeah, it doesn't seem to want to work on my MacBook using curl, but we can simulate it with our browser, so that's not an issue. And HTTP, and once again, yeah. So there you have getting IP version 6 running on Azure in dual stack. Now here's where we can start to really make some interesting things happen. we can start to do remote access to Azure. So I like to just use the wizard, and you can just create a new certificate authority. So you go OpenVPN CA. Yeah, that's okay. The common name would be and you don't have to do all this stuff, but if you're like me, you will. So adding a CA. Now, you definitely don't want to use the GUI default certificate. So then you go OpenVPN Server cert. Administrative reference, it doesn't have to be anything specific. Now the common name could be this. And I'm going to call it point to site server. So UDP on IP version 6, UDP on So we've got a lot of different options there, don't we? And right, let's make it. Interface is WAN, good. And the local port, authentication, TLS shared key, generate one, that's what we want. 2048, leave all this other stuff, the thing. Now this is where we want to do our different tunneling. So we want to do this 64.0.24. Now this is going to force everything through the tunnel. We'll do that. Now this is the network from the remote 1.24. Concurrent connections, we'll leave that. Yep, leave that. Allow connected clients to retain, yeah, that will do. DNS default domain, we won't do that, anything with that at the moment, just leave it. Finish. Now, this is weird because I went through all the wizard to create an IP version 6 tunnel, and it hasn't given me any IP version 6 configurations. Here we go. So that was missing. So now we want to create an IP version 6 tunnel, and I'm going to use going to call that the 1064. That looks about right. Force. Yep. So I'm just going to make this the default, advanced. Yep. both. Okay, so now we're getting closer. Now the next thing we want to do is we currently have something missing that we want, and we want to go to Package Manager and go OpenVPN. Client export, we want that. That makes it very easy to deploy clients. And we will also want, while that's installing, might just wait without navigating away from that, otherwise it could not fail, I'm not sure. Alright, so we go User Manager. I'm going to add a user. Just call it JA. Going to give it a no expiration date. Click to create. We want it to be the same. We want the name to be the same as the username. So we'll do that. Just make that the descriptive name the same so we don't get confused. And I think that's everything. It should do enough for us to get connected via the VPN. So our next step is getting our VPN settings for the firewall working. So we've got this subnet here that we're going to be tunneling across. We've got actually two, I should say. So we want to go to Firewall Rules and just have a look at OpenVPN. Now at the moment it seems like there's nothing, so I'm going to just create just allow any at the moment. And save that. So all clients will be able to connect and pass traffic through the OpenVPN tunnels. You could make that a lot more explicit, of course. Now the next thing is our outbound NAT. We want to explicitly say that our IP version 6 is going to be handled as well for our VPN clients. So what we'll do, we'll duplicate this, and I'll just get myself so this is what we want. So this network here, and I'm going to pop that in there. So anything from there, I also want it to be NATed to the WAN interface as well. Okay, so just so for so we can understand what we're looking at, we've got this as a public IP, and we've got this as a public IP. So what we're going to do now is just have a look at our firewall rules for the WAN, and there should be an address. No, there isn't. So we need to add a rule as well to allow both IP version 6 on UDP port. Destination OpenVPN is MNO, and I won't even log that. Allow OpenVPN. So we're allowing connections to OpenVPN from the WAN, and we're allowing all traffic on our OpenVPN for our clients. Now, next step, we want to have a look at our client export functionality. So we've got the server here. Now it's saying interface IP address. That is going to create problems. So we're going to use, where is it? This installation host name, which resolves to the external IP address of the firewall. Now that might not be the best thing for us. Let's double check. We might just go into our DNS settings here and just cancel that. So I've got, we haven't got a record for the external interface for our VPN server. So we're just going to add that, and we don't want it proxied because we want it to talk directly to that interface. So we just save that. So we've got vpn.togon.com in IP version 4 and IP version 6. And I just want to see ping vpn.togon.com. All right. And ping 6 and see what happens. I wonder if that's propagated yet. Ping 6, maybe not. Flush the DNS cache on Mac OS and I hope this is not the old version, but anyway, we'll give that a shot. Dig. Hasn't seems not to have propagated. Let's check the DNS checker. DNS checker, and no vpn.togon.com. That works, but okay, try again. No, it's actually let's try an external server. Yeah, so it's resolved. It's just my local computer, and I'm presuming it's something to do with my DNS filter, but it's definitely resolving out there on the interflugal. All right, so we have a client export utility here, and the installation hostname may or may not work in this case, but we might need to edit that in a minute. Now we've got everything set, these as the defaults. To set that again to the right thing, so I'm just going to choose most clients and allow, and I'm going to open And what did I say the user was? JA, didn't I? And I'm going to disconnect our old one. And miracles of miracles, it's worked. So we now have a OpenVPN tunnel into our Azure environment. Let's see if we can actually ping. So we know one of the hosts is ping 10.0.1.5 is our web server. And let's tunnel into directly into, and right, we're in over the tunnel, but let's do that via the internal IP address of the computer as well. So we'll go to our virtual machines and go test VM, and then finally go network settings and look at the IP version 6 config, and let's see if this works. And yes, so now we're connected via our VPN tunnel through our pfSense box on the internet. And now we want to have a look at what it says, what is my IP? And we should have it lining up with our external interfaces on Azure. So using ULAs, dual stacking your network and getting it all running is quite a challenge, but it's something that is achievable with a bit of time.